The story, the story seems like an amalgamation of different events, and the Incanus seems like an amalgamation of different characters. So the story seems, it's in some ways it's very similar to Scarpi's story. There's like these 6 cities that Incanus destroys, save one. Where in Scarpi's story, the Chandrian destroys, saves 7 cities, and except for one survives. So there's some similarity between that. But Trapis' story, he says it happened, he first says maybe 400 years ago, but then he's like, no, more than that, probably 1,000 years, but maybe not quite as much as that. So it sounds like that there's a second event that is very similar to the event that happened in Trapis' story. So it may be that the Chandrian failed the first time, and then they went for a second bite at the apple and tried it again, and Telu forwarded them the second time, is what it kind of sounds like. I don't know if you guys, when you go through that, if it sounded like that to you, or if that's just something I picked up.
I did not pick up on that, but that makes sense, seeing as how there's a lot of different stories following the same storyline. There's inconsistencies in both. So, and it goes back to what we've said in past episodes, where you know the timelines could be circular, that there could be something going on to that where Kvothe is has been re-entered into another character in some sense.
I think that I can see it that way. There is something about the timeline that's really interesting. My first reaction to what Dan was saying there is that I've sort of looked at these stories as almost being like different versions of the same story. How we have different religions. Sure. It's almost like Muslims, Buddhists, Christians. They have different versions of similar stories.
Yeah, Scarpi's story, this story, Hespa's story about Ajax stealing the moon, Tellurian's story. They all seem like they're all telling either different versions of the same story, or they're telling different parts of the same story. The same big story, and they're just telling like different sections of this same story. It all seems like that. All these little stories that we get are all filling in the details of the bigger history of the world. They all seem to be either telling it in a slightly different way, or just telling a different part of the story.
Yeah.
When we get far enough along, I'd like to, if all three of us can maybe work on it and give like a side by side synopsis of the 4 different stories that have been told. And it may not come till we're in the second books, but do you see what I'm saying? Where we can line up kind of the similarities.
Well, we're definitely going to dive deep. Every time we come across one, like there's a ton of stuff I want to talk about in this one to kind of flesh it out. But I think it's either a version of Scarpi's story that he's telling, but the fact that he's pretty fucking sure that it's humans, and humans didn't exist in Scarpi's story. He's pretty sure it's humans, and he's pretty sure it's, somewhere between 400 and 1,000 years ago. Makes me think that maybe the Chandrian have almost achieved their goal a couple times of, if their goal was to destroy the world, maybe they've almost done that twice. And one time it took Celatos to stop them, or whoever stopped that one city from being destroyed. And this one, maybe Telu came down and put an end to it. But it seems like they're telling, a very similar story, but it's kind of like they've almost achieved their goal a couple of times. And so they're just constantly trying to do the same thing. And, the angels and the Amir and the Scythe are trying to stop them. And they've been successful so far.